Hey, Randy Joe here, and welcome back to the channel, where we have been listening to Kate Bush's discography on a monthly basis. We have been continuing. We listened to Hound of Love first, back in Art Pop April. The reception to that video was so positive that I decided to, of course, check out the rest of her discography monthly here. And we went to her debut. We listened to The Kick Inside last month, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I've gone back to it many times. I think it is a lot more accessible than Hounds of Love, but I don't think it is as strong overall to Hounds of Love. That being said, I do think it is a really great 70s album and worthy of a listen, and a really great starting point, especially considering she was only about, I believe, 19 when that one released. Today, though, we are checking out her second album, the follow-up to The Kick Inside, Lionheart. Now, like The Kick Inside, Lionheart was also released in 1978. You need to keep in mind that this album was pushed out very strongly from EMI, from what I read. They were really pushing Kate Bush to follow up The Kick Inside simply because, she was exploding on the scene, and they want to capitalize on that. And they really, pushed her to make this album at a rapid pace. It only came out like 7 months after, from what I read. And in doing so, Kate Bush herself has said that Lionheart is, in her opinion, a disappointing release. It is not the album that she, I guess, wanted to make due to the constraints that were put on her. So I have to keep that in mind going into this, that this might not be as strong of an album as The Kick Inside, simply because it was kind of tarnished by the label. So let's give some sympathy our way when listening to this one, because if there are certain issues with it, I'll try to remember that, again, Kate Bush was sort of forced to do this album at such a rapid pace that, again, some of the artistic integrity might have been lost. Time to quit my yapping. Time to get to listening. This first track here is Symphony in Blue, is the name of this one. And I believe is only one of 3 tracks on here that were written during the production of this album, while the rest were written, again, like The Kick Inside, as a teenager, which is still very impressive. So let's start with Symphony in Blue here. I really like the atmosphere of this one. Very airy. Really like beautiful instrumentation so far, though. I do have to say, it's got a nice airiness to it, like I mentioned already, but it also has a bit of a kind of relaxing lounge-esque tone to it. I think that's all in the strings and piano. Speaking on God here. It's got a bit of a jazziness to it. Like really beautiful passage that all was. The way it ascended and she's just bringing it back down. Makes sense. Ooh, the way she sung that heart. Opening track, Not Afraid of the Taboos here. She's speaking on religion and sex within the same track. Certainly a taboo, especially in the mainstream. She doesn't shy away from it. Gotta respect it. And, she did it on The Kick Inside. She's doing it here right off the bat. Perhaps the song's about finding a purpose in life. Her search for God, her search for meaning. She's needed for the symphony, perhaps the music that's calling her. I really like this one. Strong opening. Alright, that's it for Symphony in Blue. A pretty solid track. I think it kicks things off strong. with its very laid back, almost lounge-like, jazz-like instrumental. It's got a nice, like, smoky atmosphere to it. And she speaks on religion. She speaks on sex. She speaks on finding a purpose, from what I gather. Speaks a little bit on love, which I think, really encompasses the range of Kate Bush's writing abilities. She covers all the topics there quite fluidly. Let's go into In Search of Peter Pan. Continuing things off here. I've always been a Peter Pan fan. Let's see where this goes. Very slow start here. Piano work is just as strong as it was on the Kick It side so far. The subtle backup vocals. Ooh. A little plucky uptick here. Really great vocals, not just the ones in the forefront, but these background vocals. A good sense of layering, as always, with Kate Bush. Definitely something that would be pushed quite strongly on Hounds of Love. I like this shimmery, is that like a xylophone, perhaps? Kind of shimmered back and forth between the ears here. This one's subtle. I'll say that. It draws back quite strongly in those main passages. And then here she flourishes. Those drums too, rapid. This passage here, second star on the right, all the way till When You Wish Upon a Star. I really love the descent in it. I love the almost nursery rhyme bedtime story tone. Plays quite strongly into the Peter Pan motif. And of course, a classic reference to Peter Pan, When You Wish Upon a Star. Overall, though, In Search of Peter Pan was such a brisk listen. Maybe it's because it's so diverse in its pacing. Really slows things down during those passages and then ascends them quite strongly. But not my favorite track so far of Kate Bush's. Maybe that one will take more time to grow on me, but I've got to say I did find it didn't have as much of a punch to it as I was hoping. Whether it be lyrically or emotionally or instrumentally. Even that rise in the chorus was kind of short-lived. But that's okay. We'll go into wow. Hopefully it'll wow me. Which, the transition from Peter Pan to this one. What is this? Aquatic ambience. I feel like we're in the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack right now. That's beautiful. So shimmering and oscillating. It's maybe a strong sense of sarcasm here. Those horns. Is this perhaps about a teacher of some sort? Or maybe a fellow actor? What does that mean? Hitting the Vaseline? Is this some sort of... It's about show business, which I assumed. It's a sexual reference, the Vaseline line. I was going to say that, but I didn't know if maybe I was just being a little too crude there. Using Vaseline as lubricant, obviously. Interpretations of this track on Genius are quite slim, so we'll just take our own and run with it. But I did gather the show business theme was pretty strong throughout so far. The rapid guitar work on this one, beautiful. I'm not sure which guitar that is, but it sounds very Southern inspired, like maybe South American in some capacity. Perhaps the mandolin. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna say it's the mandolin that we're hearing there. That long descent. Whew. You know what? I like that one. Again, I do feel like this album is a lot more subtle, both lyrically and instrumentally. But I liked Wow. Again, it's just a very direct interpretation or explanation of the show business and sort of what comes along with it. The highs, the lows, the admiration that those have for their fellow actors. And perhaps there's like a cutthroat sarcasm, you know, in the unbelievable passage there. And the passage, "We're all alone on the stage tonight," again, I think suggesting how actors tend to feel a sense of, you know, their own journey, their independence, the kind of main character syndrome that comes along with striving for greatness. And it kind of adds a bit of irony to the track. But I like that one. I like the mandolin that was played there quite rapidly. Let's go into "Don't Push Your Foot on the Heartbreak." A little bit of a pun there. Not sure. We're getting into pun territory here. This Emma is diving into love, is what I'm gathering. Oh. Jesus. Such a hard drop. Oh my goodness. This one is so rambunctious. This Emma is losing control. Yeah, she's losing, all right. She's losing that inner flame. Certainly spinning out of control in this track into what I'm gathering here is a newfound love. That incredibly rambunctious chorus kind of mirrors that loss of control with this love. I love the very like yelpy backup vocals that Kate Bush always intersperses. Really ramps it up. Pushed her vocals there to a point where you don't often hear her go. Alright, I liked that one too. Again, I do think it felt a little underdeveloped. I feel like there's more that could have gone into it. That being said, what I'm gathering is this track is about a girl named Emma who is throwing herself into this love. And she's not letting up. She's diving head first. But again, it's not super, like I said, it's very subtle. It's not in depth with the lyrics, which I find is being used quite heavily as subtlety throughout this album. "Oh England, My Lionheart." I think this is the closest we get to a title track here. Kind of like a Victorian sound to it in that background. A Peter Pan reference. And Shakespeare, very literary heavy. I think the very a very orchestral, Victorian-esque sort of backup instrumental there. Kind of combines with the theme of England here. I'm gathering this is just Kate Bush speaking on her love for England. Lots of literary references tied to England, and lots of references to certain English landmarks. Seems like that is what this track is going for, is a love letter to England. A very gentle track, but again, it's not grabbing me. Even this chorus, and a chorus should usually be the part that really grabs your attention. It's not doing too much for me. I don't want to go. Maybe she's leaving England in this track, but again, this track just seems like a love letter to England. No shame in that. Similar to how I'm feeling about some of these other tracks, I feel like they're underdeveloped. Again, gotta keep in mind, this was pushed out heavily from EMI, and she said herself that this album was disappointing for her. So, you know, it seems like Kate Bush knows that this track list could have been touched up more and better produced overall, and just really better managed from EMI. So again, let's not hold it against Bush. It's a misstep, maybe overall, but a misstep on the label's part more so than anything. Here's Full House though. Maybe there'll be a spin around. Maybe the second half of this album will really blow my mind. Oh, very like disturbed sounding instrumental with the eerie shimmering of the piano. Sorry, they what? Gotta be careful with that one there, Bush. I like this. The guitar here. Whoever is on the guitar here, I love the rapid ascent and descent that they're doing, and it also has a very just like almost like Queen-esque tone to it, which Bush did quite heavily, I think, too, in the Kick Inside, with the very kind of like overdubbed guitars, electrifying sounding. Again, like this passage, very claustrophobic sounding, and it's like every part of the instrumental is kind of tugging in a different direction. Not much to say about that one. Similar to how I felt with the rest of the track list for the most part. A little lackluster. Let's go into In the Worm Room. I did like the claustrophobic, chorus instrumentally, but again, I just feel like it was not well developed into that, and I don't think it really justifies, having that chorus when the rest of the track just feels like it meanders a little bit. In the Worm Room, though, we'll continue after Hounds of Love and Kick Inside. This does feel like a bit of a letdown for me personally. But of course we'll listen to it more and give it more of a chance to grow on me. A little Freudian here. This is very gentle. Such a soft passage of very sensual, this track. Very sexual, this track. Doesn't shy away from the foreplay. I do like the way this one's written. And performed very subtly and slowly. You know what? I gotta say, as this one closes out, wow. I like this one. That's what I've got to say. I've got to say, this has the lowest streams on the album, and I actually think it's one of the strongest efforts here. Like, the lyrics are very beautiful, very sensual and sexual, but written, you know, it's blunt, I should say, but it's written in a way that is very poetic and almost literary. Feels like a very tender love scene. But again, in the warm room, I'm not sure if it's suggesting this loving, deep relationship, or if perhaps it's some sort of like desperation on the man's part here, because it seems like he's almost tempted at times by this woman. Perhaps she is, a lady of the night, to put it nicely. Either way, whether it's a loving relationship or not, I thought it was written beautifully, and I thought the performance was very subtle from Kate Bush here, along with the very gentle piano work. I liked it. I liked that one a lot. I would love to see more tracks like this from Bush, because she has shown in the albums I've heard so far to be very powerful when it comes to both her vocals and her instrumentals. She can flourish and really expand quite greatly. But it's these very slow, subtle, piano-focused moments that sometimes hit the hardest for me. And In the Warm Room, I thought was beautifully tender. Let's continue on to this one here, Kashka from Baghdad. I think that track is underrated in the Warm Room. And there's no comments. A shame. But I like that one. Like a weird flute. Bass line here is very prominent. She have an affair, is what I'm gathering here. Ooh. Very, like, different vocals coming in here. A man's voice. Oh my goodness. Very playful there with the different vocalists coming in. I think she's having an affair here. She's truly happy with him. I like the very almost like silly, the silly lighthearted humor, and there's light and love you see. It's like there's a self-awareness in the somewhat corniness of that line. She's peeping on Kashka here. Almost yodeling. I really like that bizarre flute-like instrument. Kind of rapid drop there. Maybe this observer, like Keisha's playing here, is admiring their love, their affair. I like this one though. I think instrumentally it's quite diverse, and shows a nice, like, happy love in the midst of a taboo affair, is what I'm gathering here. Let's go into Coffee Hom Ground though. I love me some coffee. Used to be a coffee hater up until about a year ago. Oh my goodness. This is a strange instrumental. It's almost like a circus. Switching from that very bizarre, deep, playful tone she does to this, her typical high-pitched vocals. Very fluid transition. Maybe I should say stark contrast. Oh. Why do I feel like this sounds familiar? That passage there. That passage there that was very brief that I just caught reminds me of... I can't place it. It's going to bother me, but there's something there of another track perhaps from Bush. Maybe something that she teased. Maybe something she developed further. Unless it was sampled in something. I don't know. Very like European sound to this one. Like I feel like we're in the streets of like Paris or something, or in some sort of circus. No idea what any of these lyrics mean. Very abstract. So of the first two albums, Kick Inside and Lionheart, which to me feel like very classic 70s albums so far, and certainly feel rooted in the 70s sound, Coffee Home Ground is where I feel like Kate Bush really starts to push how bizarre she can get, because this was like a weird circus-like performance with very abstract lyrics that I had no idea what she was even talking about half the time. Especially get to the end, she's speaking German. And upon further reading here, this was inspired by a ride with a paranoid taxi driver who believes someone was out to poison him. So here is quite literal in the sense that worried about the coffee home ground being poisoned. So a little bit of a silly track overall, a strange one, both lyrically and instrumentally, but refreshing so far on this album. I'll say that. Hammer Horror. We're gonna go right into the last one here. Very epic intro. Jesus. Talk about making a scene here. Stood in the bell tower, now you're gone, so who knows all the sights of Notre Dame. Is this about the Hunchback? This is another literary reference. Oh. That really weird, bizarre, like kind of washed out effect there. It's so twisted. It's like a hard, almost like kind of bassy sound. Oh, such a throaty performance here. Here's this actor taking the mantle here, which I was reading, sorry. I read ahead a little here. I spoiled it, but the story of the song concerns an actor who gets thrust into the lead role of the Hunchback in Notre Dame after the original actor dies in an accident on the film set. He is guilt-ridden and ends up being haunted by the ghost of the jealous original actor who was a former friend. What an incredible concept and story to weave here. And here we see this actor taking on the role, wearing the former actor's clothing. But that's such a mind-blowing concept for a track, for a song. It's so literary. This actor, perhaps terrified of the ghost of their former friend, is what I'm gathering here. Trying to ease their soul. They're stricken with fear. Now they're doubting the role they're taking. It's that ghostly friend. A hunchback. Tons of guilt this friend has. So much guilt that perhaps this ghost isn't even there. Perhaps this ghost is just a figment of their guilt. I love the calm down. They're like rattling drums, adding to that eerie, horror-esque tone. We got a gong. Okay, let's let this one come to a close here. I wonder if this track, if this was written in her teenage years, closing the album out, I'm wondering if Hammer Horror was written around the time she wrote the track Wuthering Heights, specifically because of the very spiritual elements of it and the very heavy story that she's kind of intertwining into the mix of the track here. Because Hammer Horror is not a simple single line story like most tracks try to go for, because they don't want to overload the listener perhaps with the story, tons of exposition. Hammer Horror, though, doesn't shy away from telling a broader story here, because like I said, this is a whole paragraph essentially of explanation for what the plot of the track is. And again, it's very literary heavy, which I said in the Kick Inside I liked about Kate Bush is she doesn't shy away from being very literary in her music, which most musicians wouldn't try to do too much because I think it alienates audiences. But it does make for a great artist when done well. And like I said then, Kate Bush does it well. She does it fairly well on, a chunk of these tracks. I think In the Warm Room, by the way, is the most underrated track here. I don't know why it only has 921,000, why it's the lowest streams on the album. Doesn't make sense to me. I get Hom Ground having less. It's a bizarre track. But In the Warm Room is a very beautiful, touching, or eerie track, depending how you want to view it. I love it. But as for Lionheart as a whole, Symphony in Blue was great. I thought it kicked off things great with a more jazzy, lounge-esque tone. And Search of Peter Pan was a little disappointing for me. I liked Wow. I enjoyed Don't Push Your Foot on Heartbreak to an extent. I do think that one, again, was a little underdeveloped. Just like really the whole middle section of this album felt underdeveloped. Full House, another similar problem where, again, I feel like because of the time constraint she had on this album, she didn't push, where the track could have gone to its fullest extent. That, or these are really just like, as harsh as this might sound, the Kick Inside leftovers. This is like a sequel to the album that just had really a better track list overall. But there are still some gems in here, like In the Warm Room, Symphony in Blue, Hammer Horror, I thought was pretty great. Kashka from Baghdad, I also really enjoyed that one. I thought the story and the plot of that one was well developed and has some good sense of layering as well in that one too. Yeah, Lionheart, overall, and I say this again as a fan of Kate Bush, don't come at me. I know there's a lot of Kate Bush fans have got. Do not throw your hate my way. But I do think this is a disappointing album overall. Like, from what I've come to expect from Kate Bush, this is not the album that, I'm going to be going back to a lot. That's for sure. But I will listen to it, a good 4 or 5 times like I do with every release. I try to, at least, especially the Kate Bush discography, since I want to give it some real meaning and depth as I listen to them. And maybe Lionheart will grow on me, and maybe some of these tracks will feel a little bit more fleshed out the more I listen to them. But yeah, it's subtle at times, but it's also underdeveloped at times, and overall it's a rather mixed bag for me. But that does it for today's video. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to follow along and listening to more albums. We are currently doing Jamaican June, where we are listening to reggae albums throughout the month of June. Having a blast doing it. I'm loving reggae. I don't know why I waited so long to listen to more reggae. But it's a great series that I'm doing right now, and you can check out Jamaican June if you're interested in that. And you can also subscribe if you like this video and you're not already subscribed, because again, I do want to do every Kate Bush album. I'm going to do every Kate Bush album, her whole discography. So after Lionheart, we will be checking out Never Forever. Seeing as Lionheart, though, was only 36 minutes and Never Forever is only 37, and I was a little disappointed with Lionheart. Maybe I'll come back to Kate Bush in just a couple weeks. Maybe we'll do a video early June, or early July, end of June. If you're interested in another Kate Bush video that quickly, you don't want to wait a whole month, then let me know, because maybe I'll cover Never Forever sooner than the month mark like I initially planned. But again, let's let Lionheart grow on me, and let's see where that goes. But as always, my name is Randy Joe. Thank you for watching, and I'm signing off.